Warm welcome, everybody, to a global launch event, Youth Wellbeing in Cities, Development of a Wellbeing System Map. It's really exciting to see so many of you joining from all around the world. Thank you for your participation. My name is Barbara Bulc. I'm a social innovator and the founder of SDG Collaboratory based in Geneva, Switzerland. And I'm also a steward of our Cluj Living Laboratory for Youth Wellbeing, supported by Fondation Botnar. We will share today with you how we applied system thinking in collaboratively developing a system map together with the System Mapping Academy and our local partners, how this process evolved in the city of Cluj-Napoca, a vibrant intermediary city in Romania, in Europe, and how this approach can serve us all to designing interventions for well-being in urban development and transitions. I especially wish to acknowledge our local partners, the UBB, Babeș-Bolyai University, and the School of Public Health, Directorate of Social Services in the municipality of Cluj-Napoca, Group Pont, Velo, and Rural Senses. With this, I would like to invite Zur Oran from Fondation Botnar to please share your remarks. Over to you, Zur.
Thank you, Barbara. Hello, everyone. It is great to see you all. It's an exciting meeting as we have a chance to learn from the Youth Wellbeing Systems Mapping, a participatory effort which represents the approach of Fondation Botnar towards youth-driven and evidence-based process, which include inclusive participatory design and implementation of activities with and for youth. I'm not sure if you are all aware, but the Youth Wellbeing System Mapping process was conducted under the umbrella of OurCluj, which is a partnership between the Cluj community and our foundation, aiming at addressing the needs of young people in the city and its metropolitan area. Similar partnerships were developed in the past 2 years with 4 additional cities worldwide: Tanga, Tanzania, Koforidua, Ghana, Manta, Ecuador, and Barranquilla, Colombia. Our partners from these cities are here on this call, and in May this year, they will be joining us in Cluj for a few days, during which we will be learning together about the journey of our Cluj. One of the main challenges of our foundation is the need to move from a project-based approach, which is what we used to fund in the past, to a system thinking approach, in which you realize that positive change would not happen just by securing one single activity. On the contrary, many different efforts of various partners collectively contribute to the goal you aim to advance. When you take a systems approach, you acknowledge the strengths and weaknesses of the system you aim to support, and you need to understand the strengths of your partner and who is missing at the table. You must change your mindset from changing the system, which might not get you so far, to strengthening the system, as there is so much rich experience and knowledge that was gained before you and will stay much after you. I encourage us all to appreciate where we are, acknowledge the contributions of past generations, and take the responsibility to improve what needs to be improved for current and future generations. I'm grateful for all the partners who contributed to the exercise and those who joined this call. I find it heartwarming to see so many partners who care for youth and are willing to take action to secure a better future for all. It is truly incredible to see how we can spread learning across the globe through the RCT network. Thank you all again. Thank you, Barbara and the SDG CoLab team, for this beautiful contribution and for leading us through this call. Over to you, Barbara.
Thank you very much, Zur. With this, I will share my screen and move us into the agenda. So agenda for today, we have an hour and a half. We want to make sure that we have enough time for Q&A and our discussion. In the first part of the hour, we will share with you our approach and process and how does the system mapping actually work. In the second part, we will dive into the system map itself. We will share with you system stories that bring the systems to life, introducing personas or social archetypes. We will share with you key insights from our mapping journey. And very importantly, we will focus on benefits and use for well-being and urban development in various contexts. A little bit more about the system mapping project. Why is it that we are focusing on youth well-being and cities? I had an opportunity to contribute an op-ed to the Financial Times that asked the questions, why do we need to prioritize well-being over growth? This was part of the series Thriving Cities that also Fondation Botnar has been partnering with the Financial Times to bring these new stories to life. For young people living in the cities, crises and opportunities collide. Why is this so? We know that we face today multiple crises, not only ecological, social, economic, and political, but also deep cultural and spiritual crises. A growing sense of separation is what we feel every day from our inner self, each other, our communities, and the nature. Why are we talking about well-being over growth? We see that the model of infinite economic growth and technological innovation is not a path for societal and planetary well-being. We also see tremendous shift in population. We know today 2/3 of global population will be urban by 2050. And over 60% of urban population below 18 years old lives in developing countries. There is a number of emerging initiatives where we see that well-being is already put first, not only in local communities, but also in countries. Some of the countries that have been spearheading these initiatives are New Zealand with their well-being budget, Wales, Scotland. We are familiar with the Wellbeing Economy Alliance that some of you may be part of. WHO has convened recently a meeting on putting priorities of well-being in Europe. In fact, their definition in their 65 constitution prioritizes well-being. OECD has put a lot of efforts in how do we measure impact when we put well-being first. Transition Movement, Donut Economics Labs, and our city initiative are only some of those initiatives that are experimenting how do we design intervention and how do we innovate differently. With this in mind, we move into our research questions that formed the basis for the well-being system mapping experience. The 3 research questions that we started with are the following. First, what are the main drivers of well-being of youth in the city of Cluj? The second one, how are the different dimensions of well-being connected with each other? And the third one, how do we see leverage points for systemic intervention to positively influence the system? We took the opportunity for the mapping exercise in an urban environment of a living system in Cluj-Napoca, Romania, in Eastern Europe. And I'm very glad that many of our partners are also on the call today. So we ask the following question, what is well-being for you? And I would like to invite you to use the chat and spend a minute or two to think, to reflect, what is well-being for you personally? Are there some chats going on?
Yes, getting started.
Getting started. If somebody wants to express verbally and not in the chat, I see. Yeah, inner and outer space, good health, strong support, time with my family, equilibrium, feel supported, life satisfaction, being happy, happiness, lifelikeness, good sleep, good food, love, trust, feeling safety. Well-being is about being complete, being content, freedom from social and physical barriers to the activities of daily living, enjoyment, spending time with family and friends, having basic needs, enjoy good living standard, love, very not enough, not too often expressed, freedom for decision making, well-being for me, assurance to live life, well-being for me, assurance to generate purpose, balance, and having the basic conditions to fulfill personal and collective dreams. State of being in harmony, being content with yourself, peaceful, the feeling of security. Thank you. Very powerful. Thank you for sharing. So here we want to share with you what did young people in the city of Cluj answer to the same question. We asked this question in October at one of our participatory meetings, and these are some reflections for illustration, what we heard from young people themselves: peace of mind, good food, taking on challenge and winning, cooking, sharing with others, a lot of peace and love, having time for yourself. So a lot of similarities, and we have noticed that there was also a lot of open vulnerabilities and the need for care. So when we talk about well-being, well-being is not easy to define. There is no one single definition. When we look around the world in different communities and scholarly research, what is well-being? The overarching answer that we see is well-being is relational. There is no one single definition, varies by culture and context. And also, well-being is a property of emergent complex system. We outlined here a number of definitions. I will not go into details. We will share this presentation with everybody. But in general, the well-being is articulated as a combination of factors, a balance point between psychological, social, physical, looking at the different levels of individual, societal, and environmental. We see very similar definitions, going more into looking what is mental well-being towards the expanding the widening circles, and also introducing so-called relational well-being. And very important is also that we look at how the local context and culture understands well-being. And in our context, in Cluj-Napoca in Romania, based on the study that was developed together with our partners and young people, what came out was especially important: personal health, learning process, having agency and enabling environment for youth to flourish. So these are just some illustration of global and local definitions. And I would like to ask Fabian to walk us through our approach and process.
Yes, hello. So from my side, I'm Fabian from the System Mapping Academy, and we collaborated on this project and also supported the whole process and methodology part. And I just want to give you a short overview and introduction into what we mean when we talk about systems and system thinking. So this is just a glimpse of the mindset we are using during the process. But we think it's key to get a bit of an understanding in that area. So if we talk about system thinking or taking a system approach, it's a lot about having a different perspective on the world and also on the challenges, in that case, within a city and the opportunities that they are. So to break it down and very a bit simplify things, we have here a bit of a comparison of, let's call it conventional thinking, or how we mostly trained to think, and system thinking. And here you see we are really urged to think, to optimize the parts often. So if we are thinking about being in a city and having a challenge in front of us, we are seeing only a lot of the parts and maybe trying to change them. In comparison to that, in system thinking, it would be more about the relationships between these parts and making them visible, and yeah, improving also the relationships. So looking at the in-between is one principle in system thinking. Also, we are mostly looking at the things which are obvious. So we see a challenge and we only see the tip of the iceberg, basically, and then try to tackle this one in comparison to a system thinking, which is more asking the indirect and the root causes. So really trying to understand the root causes of the challenges which we are facing, and spot the indirect and not obvious things. Also, time is a crucial aspect of system thinking, as we are often thinking in short-term success, which means short-term in system thinking terms is also if we are only looking at 1 or 2 or 3 years or something like that. So we really try to bring us in a situation where we think much more in a long-term sense, and also thinking about the consequences which are maybe not intended at the moment, but maybe on the long run are coming out of our interventions in the system. And lastly, we also tackle often, especially if you think about the context of a city, there are so much actors active, and they are also independent. They are working on the same issues maybe, but simultaneously, but in an independent manner. And in system thinking, we try to find this in individual and actors and try to coordinate them and try to open up a collaboration between them to get a bit more impactful change within the city. There is this analogy of the elephant and the blindfolded people. I think maybe you are aware of this metaphor already, but it's an interesting one, because especially also for our process with the system mapping, this is a really, really key. And this metaphor is really about that different people looking at this elephant, and they are blindfolded, so no one can see anything, and they just feel this elephant, and they have different results which are coming out of that. So some people are seeing a snake, some people are seeing a tree or a wall or something like that. So this means that the people in the system, so if we see this elephant as the system, they see only their perspectives and taking out the results of this, of the things they are seeing and thinking. And what we try to achieve with system mapping is to open this up and to basically bring these people into exchange and working towards a shared understanding of the system. And this is only working if we are working together and really sharing these different perspectives there. So when we talk about system mapping, we will also, of course, show the system map and also give you an introduction into what were the insights we gained. This is how a system map looks like. In this case, the methodology is really called causal loop diagram. So that's one special version of the system mapping approach. And it's basically a visual language to visualize complexity. And this helps us to see hidden connections and interdependencies. So you already see the arrows and so on. There's a lot of things going on. But we also get, by doing this collaboratively, this shared understanding, which I just talked about. And yeah, it also, by visualizing this complexity, makes it more tangible and you can really talk about things. And yeah, this is just on a meta level, but you will see the results soon. Yeah, Barbara, maybe just 1 or 2 words on our context where we applied the system mapping methodology.
Yeah, thank you. So we applied the system mapping methodology in the city of Cluj-Napoca, which is the former capital of Transylvania in Romania. And it's a multicultural mid-sized city with a very vibrant environment, very much focused on innovation of all kinds, with very strong educational system. Here, just some illustrative examples. And also, with really focus, so this is a photo from one of our participatory engagement in the exhibition, where we noticed that really what we care for is the young people in the future. And I think this is beautifully illustrate why we are doing what we are doing.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, basically, if you now imagine how that you can get an idea of how we actually created the system map, we'll shortly move you through the process a bit. First of all, of course, for every visualization of complexity, the data resources are key. So it's really important on which data we are basing this visualization. So in that case, we took a really collaborative and also qualitative approach and combined it with studies which we analyzed. So we did a lot of interviews with experts and also with youth and had workshops where we co-creatively shared knowledge and also worked together on the map. And in the end, we also came back to the experts and shared the outcome and asked for feedback. So there's a lot of soft knowledge, let's say, in this area, but also we combined it with studies like the LEAP study, which is one of a big study, which is also related to the well-being of youth in that area. And the process looked something like this. So it was online workshops combined also with offline activities. And we had over 40 local partners, which came out of the OurCluj initiative, but also much more people there. So we had really a high engagement, which was super great to see how much people are caring and taking action in this field of well-being in the city. And yeah, maybe Barbara, something about the contributors.
Yes, I think I really want to acknowledge well over 40 participants and dedication and commitment in this process, and in particularly those serving in the core team that were part of this collaborative process that include Babes-Bolyai University School of Public Health and the entire team, that I think almost everybody is here with Simona, Amalia, I see, and Marius and Stefan could not join, but I really want to acknowledge all of you. And then, of course, the Directorate for Social and Medical Assistance of the Municipality of Cluj-Napoca with Brindusha, Grigoraș, who is also joining us today on the call, and the Pond Group, the youth ecosystem innovator, with Agnes and Andras, who are also on the call today. Velo Association, another partner of our Cluj Living Club initiative, as well as with Christina and Dumitru, and Rural Senses with Raluca, who has also taken part in this process. And then, of course, many, many more. Everybody is listed here. And the colleagues at the Fondation Botnar, who have been a real guardian and steward for this initiative to happen. And I want to share also that this is after 5 years of working here in Cluj, we were able to mobilize this ecosystem together with our partners. So thank you all. None of this would have been possible without your commitment and presence, even during the summer, August time, when we had a very, very long workshop. So thank you to all of you.
Thank you, Barbara. Yeah, to just briefly give you an idea on how the timeline was in the process, I will just quickly move you through our process here. Just also that you get an idea of what effort basically is put into the whole process. So basically, we started with a collection of data, where we brought everyone together in a digital space and collected all the insights and the knowledge who was there in the room, and then already tried to find some areas in that system, for example, here in the relationships or healthcare and nutrition and learning and education. And so we slowly built it up together, first versions of the system map, and tried to connect it. And you see it looks quite messy in the beginning. So obviously complexity is messy, but we are trying to then take this and iterate on it and design it a bit so that it gets easier to read. And so there are several system maps are created. And so we are really digging into the different areas of or the parts of the system map till the end, where we are now with our final version of the system map for now. So it's also important to acknowledge that these system maps, they won't never be perfect. So it's not possible to build a map which represents reality in a perfect way. So also this is just a version which will be adapted in the future. So it's a current status with which we are now able to work and also to collaborate on. So just that you have a feeling about how this all went down the last half year. And before we finally have a look at the map and also at the insights we gained, Gian will give us a short overview about how to read system maps, because we also think that always this kind of super small snippets of knowledge are also really interesting in this course and also important to understand the whole approach. So over to you, Gian.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Barbara. Thanks, Fabian. Also, welcome from my side. Exactly. Before we look at the actual system map that we developed, of course, the big question, how to read a system map, or what does a system map consist of? So in the end, it's actually quite straightforward. What we have in the system map, first of all, are different elements or variables. So here, for example, if we want to look at the physical activity of youth in a city, this is kind of our key variable, and we're asking ourselves, okay, how is this now influenced? What are the different factors? And so on the next level, and that's also what we did through our workshops, we looked at the different causes and effects that are at play in the system. So here, for example, we could say that the amount of sport activities offered in a city has an influence on the level of physical activity. Also, the general health literacy of the citizens, or the situation at home with the family. And after that, of course, we continue looking at kind of this causal change. So asking further and further, what causes this? What causes this? And in the end, we kind of get to these feedback dynamics. And here you can already see we're getting away from this just linear thinking, okay, of there's just one cause for a certain effect, but we actually get to these feedback loops. So, for example, if we look at the amount of sports activities offered, of course, those also depend on the demand for sport activities by youth, by the citizens in the city. And of course, this depends again on the level of physical activity within the city. So we kind of have this loop dynamic that we need to take into account when we're trying to understand, okay, what drives this current physical activity? And of course, for the future, how can we improve it? And so this is then kind of what Fabian talked you through the process, what was our goal through all of these workshops to identify these variables, these relationships, and especially these feedback dynamics, and make sense of what drives well-being for young people in Cluj. So now let's look at the actual system map that we developed. There's actually two versions. Fabian already gave you a glimpse of the detailed version. This is kind of the version that we developed throughout the weeks together in our workshops, and it has kind of a relative deep level of detail about the variables, about the dynamics. And this is what we have in Kumu. Fabian will show it to you a little bit later. But we also, for today and in general, for sharing the insights, developed a simplified version. Because often a map by itself can be overwhelming, especially in a short amount of time. So we tried to derive the main insights, the key dynamics, and develop that simplified version that you see on the right, and that we will mostly relate to in our call today, in our presentation today. And so, to start from the very top, based on all our interviews, on the data research, on the workshops, what kind of themes, what kind of dimensions emerge that build this larger system of youth well-being in Cluj? And so first of all, what emerged very quickly is this individual dimension with its three sub-dimensions. So first of all, and you could say kind of at the core of the map, is the psychological dimension. And that describes kind of the inner life, the inner growth of young people, but also combined with their mental health and with their mental resilience. The second dimension is the interpersonal dimension, which describes the ability of young people to build relationships, friendships, but also the support, the nurturing that they receive at their home environment with their family. And last but not least, of course, the physical dimension with the physical health, the physical activity, the healthcare, and one important topic that came up for us, the healthy nutrition, the healthy food that they receive. And this individual, or these dimensions, individual dimensions, are not alone. They're, of course, part of a more complex web that also encompasses other societal and environmental dimensions. And these can also directly or indirectly influence the well-being of young people in Cluj. And these include themes like education and learning, the career opportunities for young people, the economic situation of families and young people themselves, the ability to engage themselves in community work, the availability, but also the accessibility of youth spaces, the quality of urban housing, and the availability of natural environment. And there you kind of see on the right, so it's almost like different layers, different dimensions that emerged through our discussions, that of course have a very strong relationships and interdependencies between each other. And here we visualize some of the key variables that we have in the system map for each of these dimensions. And you can see kind of this web of causal connections, where we see there are some dependencies, there are some causes, there are some effects. And it's quickly visible that that's a complex system. And I mean, this is a simplified map. Of course, our final system map is also still a simplified map. It's impossible to capture everything, but at least it allows us to zoom out a little bit to gain this overview of what's actually part of well-being, and also see some of the interdependencies and some of the dynamics that are at play. And maybe when you look at some of these key variables or also of these dimensions, you also recognize some of the definitions you shared earlier in the chat with us about well-being. And maybe you can also now pinpoint and see how some of these different factors actually relate to each other. And in order to make this even more concrete and to dive a little bit into the system map, what we created are 4 system stories. So for the ones who are common with personas, these are kind of system personas or fictional characters that we created in order to communicate some of the dynamics that we see in the system maps. So these are not real people, these are not real persons, but they are based on, of course, interviews, on observations, on the discussions that we had throughout the project. And so here we see these 4 fictional characters that we kind of used to describe different parts of the map. And we're going to look actually at Sophia a little bit more, and together with Sophia explore some parts of the map. For all of these personas, what became obvious through the system map is that we have kind of this core, this very core dynamic in the map. And this core doesn't mean that that's the only thing that it's important, but the core means it has a big influence on other elements of the map, and at the same time is influenced by a lot of other dimensions, by the other themes of the map. So it plays a large role if we want to understand what drives well-being of young people. And these are, first of all, the dynamics of this inner growth in a positive sense or in a negative sense of the inner stagnation. So how do young people become mindful? How do they feel a sense of purpose, develop a sense of belonging and trusting themselves? And second, how can they develop a mental resilience to identify their own mental health, to improve it, or to search for help, and therefore remain kind of mentally healthy. And when we talk about a system's purpose, so this could be, if we look at these 4 fictional characters, this could be the purpose of a city built for well-being, is how to support them to become mental resilient and how to give them the environment to experience this inner growth. And that's actually one interesting thing about system mapping, to identify these dynamics in 2 different ways. So as I just said, when we talk about a goal, we can see it in a positive sense. So we can see that we see good mental health for a person. That means they may be positive with their thoughts and feelings, so they develop more self-trust. This allows them to explore themselves, to explore the environment, to be open-minded, so to develop a better awareness. And with a better awareness, they can maybe recognize their own feelings a little bit better, recognize their own mental state, which then also helps to improve their mental health. And as I just told it, it's kind of this positive loop. So more awareness, more mental health, more self-trust. So that's like a positive dynamic, or as we can call it, a virtuous loop. That, of course, is something that we want to foster, that we want to embrace within the system. But on the other hand, these kinds of loops can also just go in the opposite direction and can turn into negative, vicious loops. So this means if my mental health is bad, I might have negative thoughts and feelings. So this might decrease my self-trust. I rather would look for distractions. So this would decrease my awareness, my mindfulness. And this would also make me then unaware maybe of my worsening mental health, which then might decrease or worsen my mental health. And so kind of trapped in this vicious cycle, in this vicious loop. And so when we look at young people in general, but especially also at our fictional characters, it's interesting to see, okay, what are their resources and virtuous loops that they experience? But on the other hand, also what are the challenges they face and what might be vicious loops that are following from that? And for today, so we just wanted to take one of these system stories to give you a short illustration of how we use them and to also give you quick insights into the details of the map. So quick background, so who's Sophia? Who is this fictional character? So she's 16 years old, she's from Romania, she's in high school. She lives with her family in a rented apartment in a suburban neighborhood. And her wish is to become a teacher, a school teacher, to transform the education system as she thinks it should be more relevant for today's life. And so when we look at Sophia, we might see 4 challenges that she's facing currently and potentially turn into vicious cycles. So the first challenge she faces is that she has a high pressure to get good grades in school, as only good grades are kind of supported and allow her to follow her dream job of becoming a teacher. And so this pressure, of course, can make her anxious, can make her stressful, and in turn can reduce her ability to learn. So this might become a vicious cycle of pressure, anxiety, ability to learn, leading to more pressure. A second challenge is that her family experience financial stress. So she has to help a lot with the household, maybe even has to make another income, have a side job. So it takes time away from her education and learning, and even it makes it unsure if she can and her family even afford the university studies. A third challenge might be the low salaries in education as a teacher. So not only that the family doesn't have the financial resources for the education, maybe even afterwards or the first years as a teacher, she might struggle, she might not sustain her education or her career path, might need to switch to something else, and therefore moves further away from having a purposeful work and economic independency. And last but not least, maybe in our high school, we see a lot of smoking and drug usage. And so eventually when she's faced with smoking and drugs, maybe also having the false friend, this could also lead to an addiction for her, which then of course would deteriorate first her physical health, but then also her mental health and kind of reinforcing potential addiction. So these are the challenges that she might face and some of the vicious cycles that these could lead to. On the other hand, of course, Sophia might have resources that help her to counter these challenges, to overcome these challenges, and also to turn into virtuous cycles. First of all, she has a very supportive family. So the family is very open to her anxiety, to her stress level, can help her to overcome that. And so she builds a very strong bond, especially with her mother, for example. Secondly, she also has a strong friendships in school, in her community, that also help her to, of course, have just fun in her free time, to overcome stress, and of course to also trust herself in making personal connections and building relationships. Third, she engages herself in the local youth center. There's not many youth centers left, but there's one in her area that she can actually not just connect with people in her same age, but even with people older than her. So she builds a general trust in people in her environment, in her community, and also develops this sense of belonging, this sense of purpose, that she's actually part of something bigger within the city. And last but not least, the school support helped her to actually identify what are her strengths, what are her passions for the future. So that helps her to be aware of what she can do, of what she wants to do, gives her a bigger sense of purpose to actually become a teacher. And that, of course, motivates her to learn, to educate herself, and to make her career path come true. So these just as kind of some examples, some dynamics that we see in the system. Here in the example of Sophia. And of course, for us, the question then is, how can we actually limit the challenges of Sophia? And how can we build an environment that she can use or even improve her resources and use these virtuous dynamics? And so this was just one example, but of course we very much invite you to explore the other stories of as well, of Ada, of Eugene, of Shaba, on our interactive system map on Kumu, on the detailed map, which Fabian will also give you a little bit of insights how to actually navigate it, and if you're curious to learn more, how to actually dive even deeper into those different themes and dimensions.
Great, thank you for this yes, deep dive into the life of Sophia. I think hopefully it was quite insightful for everyone. Yeah, so just to also show you the more detailed map and how to navigate it and how you can access it, I will now share my screen here. So basically, I will post it in the chat. It's there. Yeah, so this is the detailed map is hosted in the software which is called Kumu, which is basically a website which is open for everyone, so you can just access it and yeah, play around and have a look at the system map itself. And also on the website of OurCluj is the access to this and also to the presentation and everything. So I will also share it later on. Just to give you an idea on how this detailed map now looks like. So Kumu is basically a tool for mapping. So this has some possibilities here to zoom in and out into our system map. And you see already the parts which also just Gian just told us about. So here is, for example, the well-being loop, where it's about psychological and mental issues. And you can just hover over things and highlight them and see how they are connected, for example. So we can, for example, dive into the mental health and see the connections of this element in the system. And also have a look, for example, at economic situation and how they are influencing the career opportunities and so on and so forth. So this is just the possibility to yeah, look around and explore different dimensions there. And what is also interesting is here our personas, which you already got to know. You can also have a look at them, and by clicking here on the left, you can click, for example, on Ada, and then read her story. And while reading her story, if you are just hovering over some parts of the text, you get the specific part of the map where, yeah, for example, which is about the economical struggles she has, or her time in school and what are challenges there, and how they are connected to their relationships with their family and so on and so forth. So also there's a short video which also gives you an overview about how to navigate this map. Yeah, the idea is that it's basically open for everyone to have a look on, to get some insights, and also it's often really interesting how maybe you can also situate yourself in some areas with your initiative or with your organization and see what parts are connected to which areas in the map and so on and so forth. So therefore, Kumu is a really great tool, and have a look at it, and yeah, would be great if you also see a benefit in using it for your work or for your projects ahead. So much about the map and Kumu. What we now, in just looking at the time, we are quite good, but maybe a more shorter overview about the key insights. So you now got to learn to know, for example, the different parts of the of Sophia, which was just a metaphor basically for the challenges which we found. But of course, we also gained insights from working with the map and also in the conversations which we had in the bigger groups and in the mapping workshops. And so I will hand over to Barbara for leading us through the 5 key insights which we gained about well-being of youth in Cluj.
Thank you. So I will walk us through briefly, but of course we have to know that what we're trying to see with persona, we're trying to see the patterns, and in reality we know that there are no separate systems. The world is a continuum, and it is up to us where we draw a boundary around the system. It really depends on the purpose of the discussion. So the purpose of our mapping exercise was identify those areas in the map that are instrumental to improve youth well-being. And these areas that we found were the following. So the first one is the very low awareness about the centrality of the mental health and well-being. Just complete lack of awareness or vaguely there. And then the second one is related to that. It's an importance of the education and learning for young people to flourish. And as you see, both of these identified insights or areas or dimensions of youth well-being have an impact on all other areas in the system. The third one is multiple inequalities to access services and engage in communities. And the fourth one, very surprisingly neglected, even though we are going through devastating impacts of climate emergency, the environment, both built and natural, has not been really prioritized yet enough. And the fifth one that I wish to highlight is that, in fact, young people have multiple challenges, but they also have multiple resources. And it's important to understand that these challenges and resources are not linear, but they influence each other in a dynamic way. And in summary, I would say that looking at the nodes in this system map and not at the connective tissue that binds these nodes together can really be misleading. So we see clearly how important it is that we look at the relationship between the nodes, because if we disregard them, then we will make a wrong decisions to solve these challenges that we have identified. And we also see that what are these relationships? In many cases, these are the narratives, how the narratives and communications are generated and how they spread in the system. Just like in living organism, how the cells communicate, also in society, I think it's very important how narratives and purpose and communication is exchanged and shared across different communities and across these areas and nodes and circles that we have identified. I think this is in summary, so I will just sum it up as what are the possible next steps. So how can we see that? And we see that first, after a few months, we are, I would say, just beginning to sense the system together with local stakeholders. And we can see we have a bird's eye view now to identify further opportunities for change and collective action. So we can see if we intervene in these leverage points that we are beginning to see, we can have a long-term impact on the entire system. And as such, to be practical, through the OurCluj Living Laboratory, we have a space and opportunity to design or co-design such collective, or say collaborative interventions that are guided through that. Secondly, working with policymakers, we can collaboratively also influence directions how the policy can be developed, and also what kind of portfolio of interventions can be developed in the city that really can improve well-being of young people in Cluj. And lastly, as I highlighted, an importance of the system map to help us navigate, to serve as a compass, and the communication tools to scale up collaboration and the community interventions that perhaps already exist or they need to be created newly. And I think that the beauty of all of this exercise is really an opportunity to see a space to generate new pathways, to generate new forms of engagement, or so-called emerging structure. And this is exactly how nature functions. And with our Cluj Living Laboratory, this is one opportunity that we can navigate what kind of structure or structures can be created for further collective activities. So it's really up to the stakeholders. It requires a collective decision. The approaches that are top-down really would not work in such instances for long-term systemic intervention. And lastly, what I want to say that these kind of experiments are long-term. In the case of OurCluj and the Fondation Botnar approach, the phase 1 is 10 years experiment. And we are now in year 5. We are starting to see some of those changes to occur.
Thank you, Barbara. Before we go into the discussion and also the questions which are maybe popped up throughout the presentation, a bit for the closing and for the sum up of what system mapping or what are the benefits of use of system mapping, especially in the urban development. Some of the benefits you already tackled upon, Barbara, now. So you also saw it maybe throughout the process. So it's really about making sense of complex challenges. So if you think about being in a city and having the challenges ahead, it's really about learning about these root causes and analyzing them jointly in a group of stakeholders and actors in the city, and to identify and uncover these connections which are there and how maybe there are also possibilities for collaboration. Furthermore, it's really also about develop this shared understanding, which I also said in the beginning. And it's in the end, these system maps are one part of the outcome, but also the process and the learning which takes place in the whole project is also as important as the outcome of the map. And so you can imagine 40 people, 40 actors being in a room across several workshops and several months. There is a lot of happening. There's a building of trust. There is a better understanding for different perspectives gained. And this visualization is really supporting this better understanding of each other and also of a deeper understanding of the challenge itself and how maybe this can be approached. And in the end, of course, we want to ignite some positive change within the system and intervene or make interventions in different parts of the system to change it for the better. And also here, it's crucial to really look at how the partners and how you can streamline the financial and human resources, for example, maybe grow the community which is working in one topic, and then yeah, really being able to create this collaborative environment, also with the help of this methodology of mapping, which then is a good ground to be sustained also over time, so that these people work together on the same issue and know each other and know also their position in the map, for example, and then can say, okay, if I'm working in that area, but there is a connection, and we didn't talk about that before. Now we know that we have to talk about things to yeah, improve areas there. So you see, there are a lot of benefits using this methodology in this context, and but in the end, it's really about yeah, getting people in together in this visualization mode and using it to create a better and shared understanding in order to improve this system ahead. As said, there is everything what we created is open source, so you can access the system map via the link which was just shared, but also we will share it after this call with you via email, and there's also on the website of OurCluj, there are also a bit of background information and also a download for the system map as PDF and so on and so forth. So if you want to dive deeper into the topic of well-being of youth, you're very welcome. Yeah, and now I would also hand over to you, Barbara. We are really curious on your questions and on your take, maybe how would you apply system mapping in your city? What resonated on your side during the presentation? And so, yeah, happy to open the space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Over to you, Barbara.
Thank you so much. Yes, so we have time, almost 25 minutes for conversation, for exchange. This is a question we started with. I also want to invite especially those stakeholders who were part of the process, who are today on the call. If you wish to add something to this conversation, so maybe this would be an invitation to all of you who were part of the process, but didn't have opportunity to present and discuss for the sake of time. So this is a good opportunity. And also our partners in our city network. We had recently the first Our City gathering hosted by the Fondation Botnar in Tanzania, where some of these discussions were out there. It was a very engaging conversation. So really over to you, whatever questions or comments arise. So I see one question. I see, does the system map include some strategy of actualization of the data? Andrea Ponce, can you share what you mean by actualization of data so we can respond?
Yes, hi, how are you, everyone? I was wondering if maybe the relationship and the connection you share in the system map, maybe during a time, for example, 3 months or 5 later, that maybe relations in between the stakeholders and also between the interactions, how it is changing. Maybe I don't know if the system can give us this opportunity to see actualizations during time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the idea that, like we also introduced, that the system map, at some point you have, of course, the starting point of the system mapping project, and then you run through it and you create this map, and then you have the first version of it, like we now presented today. And but the idea is that we have implemented different kind of milestones where we meet again to have a look at the map again. And ideally, and that's the great opportunity now also in the our Cluj initiatives, that we have more long-term engagement of the whole program, so that we can go back to the map and have a look at it. So that's definitely the idea, because the world outside is really dynamic, and we think it is totally useful and important to reconsider some things and dynamics as you are learning throughout the time.
Yeah. Thanks, Andrea, for asking. And for us, this is an ongoing process. So this is not like the finished project. As I said, this is a beginning, and it's a collaborative. So it's a learning process. Things change, like in living systems. So it's a continuous effort. I see another question from Adriana Algarin Castillo. Do you want to share it with the group? You want to speak? Or if not, I can read it.
Yeah. Sorry,
Sure.
yeah, I can speak. It's not a problem.
And you can just introduce yourself for everybody.
Hi, I'm Adriana. I'm in Barranquilla, so I'm just starting in our Barranquilla, nuestra Barranquilla. And the question for me is because Latin American cities, especially, we are the most unequal region in the world. So I don't know if you had to deal with like big gaps, inequality gaps in Cluj, and if the map can reflect them somehow, or in the discussions, the workshops, how did you deal with that? Or you are more like, do you have a more equal base to start with, and that facilitated to put that on the map?
Yeah, maybe I can just start and others can add. So I think this is a really, really good question. In the case of locality of Cluj metropolitan area, of course, this is highly diverse, multicultural, socioeconomic, are very diverse communities. And I would say that it very much depends on the participants. So we had the 40 different stakeholders who participated. We hope, that in the process, this group increases, and that we can, I would say, include a rich diversity of groups. These are new practices, it's a process in the learning. It's also important that these meetings in the processes do take place in the communities, with the communities. And as a follow-up, we had numerous conversations, focused on where we saw that we actually do not have information. So there's a lot of room for improvement from learning, continuity. It's a really a process. I see some hands up. Also, I see Amalia. Amalia was also was a contributor. Please, Amalia.
Tina was first, but I can go.
Okay, yes.
I'm very happy this system map came to, it's not an end, but let's say a final version for now. And working on LEAP 2, if we try to integrate the system map and develop a theory of change, I was wondering if we can restructure it somehow into a theory, a system-based theory of change. And my question is for Gian and Fabian, if they worked on projects creating system-based theory of change, starting from a system map. And how complex is this part?
Yeah, sure. I can take that. Yeah, thanks, Amalia. And yes, we worked on some examples. In the end, I mean, with a system map, you already have kind of a lot of components that you normally see in a theory of change. What we do now is, of course, we turn it around. So we actually start at looking from an intervention and then see, okay, what factors are also contributing to the intervention? What are kind of factors of the environment? And then to see, okay, what is the outcome? And then from there on, what is the impact? And that we don't see it as linear, as like a normal theory of change, but to actually see, okay, where do we actually have some feedback dynamics that can support our intervention, our policy, but maybe also that can become barriers and hinders implementation or achieving the impact that we're aiming for. And yeah, and also, of course, think a little bit more about unintended consequences. So to see how does it actually provide provide the impact that we're aiming for, but also what might be other effects that we might not want to see, or that also could have negative impact, and also to consider those. So the system map gives us kind of the foundation to then derive the systemic theory of change from that, if we have a portfolio of interventions that we're aiming for.
Yeah, and I can just add, for those who don't know what is LEAP that Amalia was referring to, for those international participants. So the LEAP is the interdisciplinary study that was developed by a consortium of local partners in the city of Cluj about the youth well-being. And now we are moving into the next phase of this study to continue. So I think this question is really on the spot, and the idea would be, it's a unique opportunity to actually develop the systems opportunity, system theory of change that would really allow us to capture these feedback loops, feedback dynamics that Gian was mentioning, the time delays, and also differentiate short-term and long-term impacts. So this would be, we have a unique opportunity to do exactly that through the laboratory. Thank you for this excellent question. And of course, monitoring, evaluation, learning as part of the system theory of change also needs to be adapted if we take, as we are taking this route. Thank you. Ernestina.
Hello. Thank you, Barbara and team, for the presentation. There's a lot of work, and it shows in the presentation, and for the insights you have shared with us. This just out of curiosity, I'm yet to take a more careful look or a deeper look at the presentation, but I realized from the map that the 3 dimensions of well-being that was presented, the psychological, the physical, and the interpersonal, they do not intersect. Looking at the map, the 3 circles that have been labeled, the physical, the 3 do not intersect. So we see the intersection between 2. We see for physical, interpersonal, physical, psychological, but the 3 do not intersect. So while I'm yet to take a closer look, I'm just curious that, do you also notice, and what could be it? Why are the 3, is there no midpoint intersection among the 3 areas of well-being? I just wanted to find out if it's something you noticed and what could be accounting for it, but I will take a deeper look myself to see if I'll find an explanation. So if there's a quick response on this, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Can you also just introduce yourself for those who are not from our city network? That please.
Wow, all right. My name, I'm Ernestina. I work for Ghana Foundation as a project manager, and I am in charge of the Botnar Foundation commission project in Ghana, in Koforidua. The name of our project is KOFPRO, which is Koforidua City Project, with the young people, the Action for Youth Development project in Ghana. So I am responsible for the project. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I will give just offer a brief response, and then ask Gian or Fabian if they want to add. It is all one system, so it's not like a separation. And of course, they are very closely connected. We use, thanks to Studio Punkt, who helped us also design together with System Mapping Academy, you know, we use visualization tool to illustrate certain segments and areas to simplify the complexity of the matter. So when you dive deeper, you will see the interconnectedness across all these areas.
Right, thank you. As I said, I will take a closer look and then but I just thought I could ask if there was if you have noticed it too and there was any response, initial thoughts on that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Klaus, good to see you here.
Yes, it's very interesting. Thanks a lot for the presentations. My name is Klaus Seibt. I'm a member of the European School of Governance, which is a group of systemic thinkers, and I live in Basel, or near Basel, Switzerland. And what I came on was, I think you use the word complex for your mapping exercise, but actually what you are doing, you are making a snapshot of the complex. That means you make the complex complicated. You go on a mapping level, and actually what Barbara, what you mentioned with the laboratories, this is then about looking on the complexity, because complexity have to do with self-emergence. So within this process, within the economic system changing around that, something is changing in Cluj with the young people, because they have other fears, maybe other anxieties are coming up. What job will I do later on, etc. So over time, over time, this changes. So you will have other snapshots when you do 2 years later, other complicated snapshots when you do the systems mapping again. But it's now interesting that you could do something like developing this methodology of the systems mapping further on, so that you really have the trajectories, that you see what is really happening, what self-emergencies are happening. In Germany, there is was a nice book published. It's called "Complexify Your Life," because we have in Germany a movement which is called "Simplify Your Life." So it's about that life is actually complex, and we have to live with that over time. And I think this is very interesting in this next step. What new methods can be as well tested and improved. At the moment, we have mainly the experimental settings. We have the labs, but we have no further development.
Thank you, Klaus, for very good thoughts that you shared with us. Yes, indeed, you know, so this is a process, you know, I would say it's really in early phases as we are introducing this going forward. Yes, there are lots of opportunities to bring this to fruition. I think for us, it's also very important that we are practical, that this serves the communities. No, this is not just a theoretical exercise. We can go and analyze forever, but it's important that it serves the communities. And by engaging with communities, we will see how useful it is. And this is the first thing, how it changes in this process. But yes, we also, obviously, we're trying to focus on both theoretical and practical applications as we are sharing and exchanging knowledge ourselves and learning with others like yourself and other system thinking communities and practitioners. Thank you. Angelique. Angelique, can you hear us? Yeah.
Trying to find my unmute button. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you, team, for that excellent presentation. I really found it very exciting, and I thought it was such a brilliant visualization tool for the complexity that we know accompanies, issues of well-being. My name is Dr. Angelique Wildskut. I am from South Africa. I work at the Human Sciences Research Council of South Africa, and we are also partnering with Fondation Botnar on a big program of work across 12 countries on young people and relational well-being in the global south. And so that's why I found this tool very, very exciting, and I think it's got a lot of potential. I've got two questions. The first question, I think you've sort of started touching on. You visualized all of the complexities, and I think there's a lot of value in that. But when you're sitting in resource constrained contexts, the policymakers will ask you, sort of, what do I need to do? What are the 2 or 3 things that I need to craft interventions on to be able to address issues of well-being? And so I thought that your final points around the leverage points, I thought that was very useful in thinking towards possible policy interventions. So maybe it's just a comment and not a question. And then the second point I wanted to, or question that I had, was really about how the group of participants were selected. This speaks to obviously issues of representativity. If we're talking about 40 stakeholders, how confident are we? And I know this is a work in progress, of course, but how confident are we that that is a sort of a good reflection of, the diversity of the population that is within the city? Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm glad that you were able to come. So I want to thank Aline also to connect us, that you are here today. And just brief answer to that, so we can take some more questions. Very important issue. For us, I think in year 5 in working in Cluj, we have reached out to a large group of public, private, diversity of civic stakeholders, academic stakeholders across different communities as methodically as possible. And then we let it also emergence to happen, kind of snowballing. So it was really open invitation to this public process. And it was, we were quite amazed that actually over 40 came. So we also saw where were the gaps, and then intentionally, can follow up then going forward more into those communities who were not represented. There were several who were not represented, and that's where we see that the gaps are. And this is exactly where we are going. So we are carefully monitoring who participates in our outreach processes. So we get I would say, reasonably good idea of where we are and the gaps that we need to address together with participants in the future. It's a learning process. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe shortly on the first question of the leverage points. I think also it's also for us always a question how to what are the arguments for system mapping in different contexts? So how to get people moving and also find funding and so on and so forth. And I think also in the end, as we are living in an outcome-driven world, we are focusing on, okay, how do we want to change something? And so the leverage points, identifying leverage points that are, let's say, rooted in a deeper understanding of the system, that's basically where we see also for decision makers, which is the main argument, because in the beginning making the map and so they're just like, whatever you make, it's about the results. And of course, that's not really system thinking how we see it, but we have to find the arguments there. And so I would agree, focusing on the leverage point is or on the possible change and deeper understanding is a really good approach to that.
Thank you. I see we are at the time, so I would like us to wrap up. I see there is a Felipe and Andras who would like to ask questions, but for the sake of time, we are at 4:30. So I would really like to invite you, if you could please reach out to us via email. And as we are in Cluj right now, we're going to see you and we can engage also directly. And I would like to thank you all for participation, for incredible questions and thoughts and comments. And we are really looking forward to continue this conversation together with you and think how as this or we together, can apply these methodologies going forward. Without further ado, I don't know if Tur, you would like to say something at the closing, but on behalf of SDG Collaboratory, our Cluj partners and our partners, System Mapping Academy, I really profoundly thank you for your attention today, for excellent contribution. Tur, maybe over to you.
Thank you, Barbara. There are so many partners that joined forces to make it happen, so I will not name anyone specifically, but just thank you all, and thank you for all the participants for joining. I hope it was fruitful learning, and as Barbara said, any questions, comments, please feel free to reach out and stay with us in this journey. It's an exciting one. Have a lovely weekend.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and looking forward to continue this conversation in many places around the world.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, Barbara. Bye.